What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to be talking about the one and only Tesla stock and what you should be looking out for the future. I'm also going to break down what's going on with the overall market and how this may affect Tesla, what news just came out involving the Fed and Jerome Powell, and what the news data and technicals are telling us about Tesla and many tickers from SPY to NVDA to the QQQ and beyond. But before I break anything down about all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice whatsoever. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And finally, don't forget about the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed 5 free stocks plus a $100 cash reward. The offer ends in just a couple of weeks, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So today was a very, very crazy day in the markets. The market was just all over the place, and this had a big effect on how Tesla ended up moving. Looking at the 5-minute charts on Tesla, you could see Tesla was just swinging like crazy. We saw in the morning Tesla was trying to push up to about this 260 level. It broke above it just temporarily before failing after that. Tesla held very close to 260 before getting this rug pull all the way down to 250 after we got the rate hike decision. Then after that, the market rebounded because this was a fake drop. Market pushed up. Tesla came right back up to almost 260 before slowing down and closing just a little bit in the red. Now, although Tesla does not have enough confirmation of a big trend change, there are some signals suggesting that Tesla is showing some signs of weakness, but we're going to have to look at confirmation first before we make any objective claims like that. However, let's talk about the market in Tesla first before we break anything down. After the things Jerome Powell said, there's an increased probability of another rate hike for the month of July. And Jerome Powell was speaking today, causing lots of volatility. Also for SPY, let me just quickly mention that today was just an absolutely crazy day. This was pretty insane. SPY got this very, very nice pump in the morning, hitting 439. Then we started trading sideways, forming a head and shoulders like pattern right here with the left shoulder, the head and the right shoulder. Then the rate hike decision came out. The Fed basically did not change the rate hike, and the market ended up getting this fake sell off, which caused SPY to come down $4 in just a matter of 7 minutes, a huge drop in just a very short period of time. We hit the 433 level before getting a nice rebound and pushing all the way back up to 438. Then we came back down to 435 before pushing all the way back up to close green. So lots of volatility, especially when Powell started speaking. Powell started speaking right here and the market started pushing. But the real question is, how will the market respond tomorrow? Because we are green in the after hours, the market is still holding up nicely. This is going to depend on many different factors. But first, let's talk about Jerome Powell and what just happened. So is the Fed pausing? The answer is we're not as certain just yet. We didn't truly get confirmation of it because the Fed announced something very interesting. Now, in my other videos, I was thinking that the Fed would tell us that they may pause for this month. And if they did do so, we wouldn't know if they're going to be fixated on another rate hike until we got more data later on. And if that ended up being the case, the market could have pumped a lot more, despite how overbought we tend to be. However, in reality, it was a little bit more different from that. I'm going to break down exactly why once I show you the data, but let me first quote Jerome Powell. Powell basically said that inflation is still too hot and there's a lot of work that has to be done. There has been some progress on core PCE, but once again, it's still too hot. He mentioned that there's going to be a lot of work to be done. The full extent of the rate hikes are going to be uncertain, and he's well aware of the hardships that high inflation has in the livelihoods of Americans. He mentioned that a pause is a continuation of moderating the pace of hikes, but once again, what the Fed is trying to do is slow down the rates at which they're raising rates. So they used to be doing the 75 basis points, then the 25s. Now they're just pausing for now, but they're going to react to a lot of the data getting closer to July. Powell mentioned that in July, there are going to be, big changes coming. There's a lot of data to look at. But the thing that's important in Powell's eyes is the fact that most of the Fed officials are actually leaning into another rate hike in the future. Almost all of them, actually, the large majority of them. And in essence, he used the word skip to describe this at one point. He didn't, he wasn't too fixated on that. He kind of like slipped for a second, but that was a little bit suspicious in my eyes. And it seems like there are lots of factors suggesting that this is just a skip. Now, I did not expect the Fed to be too vocal about that. They were a lot more vocal and a little bit more hawkish than what even I was expecting. And sometimes unexpected things happen, which is why I gave you guys both the bullish and bearish cases. SPY came very close to what I was hoping for, that 440 to 442 level. It is still possible for it to try to get a push up, but we need to watch for confirmation. And this will affect Tesla moving forward. But at the same time, if the opposite happens and the market, gets another reaction to the downside, it's also very important to watch for support as confirmation. I will break down the charts in a few. Let's just first talk about this. We had more data coming out from the Fed. Just let me briefly go over this. We can see the real GDP is expected to come down very soon for 2023, and it's expected to show somewhat of an increase for 2024, but remain very, very flat. And it's not until 2025 to 2026 when they expect more growth. Unemployment is expected to spike and continue to go up for next year and also remain a little bit higher for 2025. PCE is expected to start declining as the years go on. And for core PCE, we're expecting it to decline a little bit slower. So it tends to be a lot more sticky, and Powell tended to talk more about that. Now, looking at the release for the target rate hikes, look at this right here. So this is 2023. Basically, none of the Fed speakers are expecting, or by speakers, I mean like the Fed officials, none of them are expecting a cut until 2024. Okay, so no cuts until 2024 to 2025. And going into 2026 is when we're likely going to see much lower interest rates. But once again, these high interest rates and this environment is going to last a while. So the fight against inflation and the recessionary environment is likely going to perpetuate for quite some time. However, look at this right here. I know it's a little hard to see. Let me see if I can zoom into this a bit. Right there. Notice how this is the amount of Fed officials right there. And this is going to be their target rate hike. We're currently at this 5.25, percent level. The majority of them are leaning more towards us getting above 5.5% or even up to 6%, meaning most Fed speakers have been pretty fixated, a large chunk of them, almost all of them actually, on another rate hike. Most of them are saying we should get another rate hike. Most are saying that there's going to be a lot of work to be done. And most of them are not fixated that the Fed is done with all of the rate hikes just yet, and we're officially pausing just yet. So that's part of why the market got a very nuanced response when this data was coming out. And besides that, I think that's the majority of all the data from here. A lot of these Fed speakers and a lot of these Fed officials are still going to be waiting. A lot of the Fed members are very fixated and confident that there's going to be more pain to come. Powell did mention that too, and he said that the extent of the rate hikes and their effects on the banking sector is still capricious. And once again, lots of work is still to be done. When the news came out, we initially got this fake sell-off that tricked a lot of people. But then I told you guys, when this happened, I warned you in a video that the market could rebound. Be careful with these fake outs. Typically, the first move is the wrong move. And as you could tell, we came down hard. We were pretty red, and the market rebounded and closed green. So very, very interesting stuff. However, despite how we moved, that does not guarantee anything about tomorrow. And that's why I want to break that down very soon. Some news came out about Tesla, about how Elon Musk met with the president of France, and France wants Elon Musk to build a factory in the country. That's despite some complications involving Twitter. Now, I'm not going to take any stats on the whole Twitter fiasco, but what I will say is that this is good news for Tesla because this gives them a lot more options and they can take advantage of resources and the current environments, because if they have more and more gigafactories across different parts of Europe, they could ship them across different areas which are closer, right? Instead of going from like Germany all the way to the UK, you could go from France, for example, and that's actually a lot closer. And there are other instances as well, such as resources, location, the costs, and etc., which are going to be very important. For now, this is another step in the right direction, and seeing more countries that are open to Tesla and Elon Musk opening more factories, that is just good news in my eyes. There's also some updates about the Tesla semi-production that came out. Elon Musk updated us about how it's looking very, very good. And unfortunately, we may not see the large volume production happen until next year. It may take a while for that to happen. But besides that, it's still doing very, very well. The large production to ramp up is likely going to happen with 50,000 units per year by 2024. That's going to take some time, but that's still completely fine because that's no surprise to us. But just despite that, Tesla's still doing very well, as Elon Musk said. There's a lot of progress being made, especially in Nevada, and we are going to be seeing big increases in production as the time goes on. Musk also mentioned that for now, there's progress to be made, and they're going to be improving their mechanisms that are being used to produce it. And with that said, it's once again good news for Tesla. Now, for tomorrow, from the technicals and based off the calendar, I just want to note that we have some small earnings coming out. I'm not going to talk too much about those. And then we also have initial jobless claims. We have a forecast of 275,000, and then we have The reaction to come 1 hour before the market opens, so be prepared for that for tomorrow. Then we have some data from the Philly Fed coming out, which is not going to be as significant as initial jobless claims, but it's worth noting. Also, remember, we have a lot of Fed speakers speaking. We have Bullard, the Hawk, speaking on Friday, and also Waller, who tends to be in the middle, again on Friday. Plus, we have the Michigan consumer sentiment reports coming out for Friday. So lots of data is coming out for Friday, plus OPEX options expirations. And besides that, Thursday is going to be interesting. Besides all of that, let's now talk about Tesla. Tesla's volume was 169 million, still well above average, which is a good sign. Tesla has good volume still, but looking at the overall data, the short volume is still a little bit high. On top of that, when you look at the data, the price-price ratio is a little bit high for Tesla. This did cool off a little bit today as Tesla saw a weakness that developed. It's not as strong relatively to the market as it was before, and this could change tomorrow, but we have to watch for confirmation first. KGI Securities has come out and they're saying that Tesla is going to be outperforming the market, which is a good sign. And besides that, looking at some weekly data, Tesla tends to be green about 47% of the time on Thursday. So it tends to be one of Tesla's weakest days of the week typically. But June itself tends to be a strong month for Tesla. As you can tell, we're halfway into June and Tesla has been pumping for the majority of the month. And finally, when it comes to Tesla's short interest, we saw about 64 million Tesla shares shorted, and that's the overall short volume in total from a daily basis. And this went down to about 51 million. So lots of short covering was happening to Tesla. Last but not least, look at the inventory levels. We're starting to see the Model 3 levels go up again, but the Model X, the Model S, and the Model Y were just still pretty much down there. Model Y is going up just a little bit right here, but besides that, everything else is fine. I'm a little bit concerned about the Model 3. I know the new model is coming out very soon, but we still have some time until that happens, and we're still seeing a big backlog in inventories. Hopefully, we start to see more of these models being bought up, especially when the new one comes out. And Tesla has to work harder to help incentivize more and more people to buy them. The Model Y inventory levels are starting to go up too. Typically during the summer, we like to see these things come down. So we'll just have to wait and see at this time. You could see like during the last time we had data like this, especially during like the holidays, we tend to see Tesla's inventory levels drop quite a bit. I'm really hoping the same thing happens like right here. I'm hoping the same thing happens like back then as in the past. And I'm hoping for the summer, Tesla shows lots of signs of improvement. But until then, let's now talk about the charts. Let's break down what on earth is going on. So I'm going to close a couple of these tabs just to make my monitor a lot faster. Anyways, when it comes to Tesla, things are looking pretty okay so far compared to the market. But first, let's talk about SPY. SPY is very nuanced, going back and forth and back and forth. On the 4-hour time frame, we're about to get this potential bearish cross on the PPO as we are overbought. So the technicals are favoring the bears a little bit more, but we have to watch for confirmation just to be safe. Now, I'm not too fixated in any direction just yet because we have to watch for confirmation, and it's going to depend a lot on how the market responds to Jerome Powell. If you want to be bullish, you need to see the market hold above 438 for an extended period of time. Then we have potential to test 440, then potentially 442, which is where we have very strong resistance, that 442 area. Now, if you want to be bearish, you're going to be watching this thing, how it reacts to this shop zone between 436.64 to 436.25. If it breaks below that, you're going to be watching support at 435. And if that fails us, it has more downside to come as it could get closer to this 433 level. Now, that's just, for the time being. I also want to break down how it's looking on a much larger scale because the bigger trend is starting to favor the bears a little bit more, but we don't have confirmation of the price action just yet because the market closed green. That means that for now, we just have to watch for confirmation and watch this 436 support. The odds do favor the market trading sideways, maybe cooling off a bit, but I'm not 100% convinced until we see support break. So for now, just be very patient and see how this moves. We just have to watch for what the real reaction is to Jerome Powell, and we have to be patient. Now, just because the market may get a small pullback, even if that does happen, that's completely fine, because as long as it manages to hold support going forward, it could always rebound later on over the next few weeks, next couple of trading days, and then try to break these resistance zones again. Especially as we head into the 4th of July, the market tends to do relatively well during that time frame. It could still make its way up to this like 442 level and eventually break it in the future, but we need confirmation of that to happen first, and first has to hold 438, which it hasn't done just yet. That's why just watch for confirmation and be patient for now. I'm not as confident about SPY just yet. I just need to watch it first because today was just very wild, and the way the market interprets Jerome Powell's words could be capricious, but there is still potential for it, despite the technicals looking a little bit more bearish. There's still potential, and that's why I'm going to watch for confirmation. For AMD, if we're bullish, we're going to be watching this thing hold above this, basically hold this level and try to break to 130 if it does manage to break the high of the day. If that breaks, we could see this thing get closer to this 132.3 area, which is where the imbalance is. If it fails to do so, we're going to be watching this thing break below this 126 and potentially 125 after that. Now, if we zoom out on the chart on the 4-hour time frame, AMD is still looking like this. Momentum is still favoring the bears a little bit more, but if it manages to break and hold 128, we could completely switch that and form an accumulation right over here and try to make our way up to this 133 plus area. As for Tesla's not looking that great in my eyes. The reason for that is we got this bearish cross on the PPO on the 4-hour time frame, and we formed a bearish divergence in the smaller time frames to get that rejection. So right now, we got confirmation of the bearish move, but there's no signal of a true trend change just yet, because you could zoom out of the chart basically, and you could draw out a trend line like this and show signs of Tesla like bouncing and trying to get one more pump. But if Tesla ends up breaking below the major support at this 250 level, that's going to be our confirmation that we're going to see this thing start falling into the 240s, and there's going to be more signs of weakness. So you have to watch for confirmation. The trend is favoring the bears a bit more in the 4-hour time frame. On the 1-hour time frame as well, we have confirmation too. But like I said before, just because the trend is showing that, there's no guarantee it's going to last. Because how do we know Tesla's not going to try to bounce around 255 or something? We don't know that yet, and that's why we have to watch these levels. So if you're watching Tesla, if you want to be bullish on Tesla, you want to see this thing break 257.65. If it breaks that, watch 260. If it breaks and holds 260, it has potential to try to push up again to these higher levels. But today it failed to hold 260, and we do have some bearish signals. That makes me very, very open-minded. You can see the bearish divergence on the RSI formed right over here. The RSI was quite overbought right at these levels, and it made a lower high despite this thing pumping pretty hard and making a higher high. On top of that, Tesla has been pumping very hard. We've been green 13 days in a row before today. So it's completely healthy for something like this to happen. It could always rebound later on. I'm not saying Tesla's going to crash. I'm simply saying that there could be just a slight pullback, but we need confirmation first in order to confirm it. Now, if you're bearish on Tesla, if it fails to get to this 260 area, it could make an attempt in the pre-market to try to pump, but then it could break down afterwards. If 255 fails us, we're going to be watching support at the 1-hour 50 EMA at 253.9. If that fails, let's watch 252.5 followed by 250, this zone right here. If Tesla, ends up establishing a lower high and it comes down to this level, if it ends up breaking below the 50 EMA and it fails to hold 252, 250 is going to be very key for Tesla. It's a very, very key support. It needs to try to hold the support zone right here. It has to try to hold it. If it fails to do so, that could become a bearish signal for the stock. If Tesla ends up coming down to this 250 level, there's a high probability because we have this pre-market gap right here on the hourly time frame. So Tesla has this pre-market gap around 250 flat. So there's a high probability of it coming down again. If that happens, you're going to be watching if it holds. If we get a break below 250, that's going to be your bearish signal. It's going to start testing this 247 area, 245.9, 244.5, and a lot of these support zones down here. Now, once again, your confirmation is going to be a break below 250. For now, it's also starting to show signs of establishing lower highs and lower lows, but we need confirmation first. We need to see how it opens first to get enough information. But for now, this is just based off the 4-hour and the 1-hour and many other signals out there. They are starting to point in a direction that Tesla may cool off a bit. And we're just going to watch and see how 250 holds, especially going into tomorrow. It looks like it might just kind of curl here, make its way down again. It could try to bounce, but if it does break, then that's going to be your signal. We have some bearish signals on Tesla. The market may impact it, so we're going to watch this carefully. If the market gets a rebound, like I said, there is technically a bullish case, but we're going to watch for confirmation to confirm which direction it goes in. So 260 as resistance, hold that, and this thing still has potential. It could try to invalidate this bearish divergence. If it fails to hold 260 and just chops around here, the odds will favor it eventually coming down. 250 could get tested again and the odds favor that. If 250 breaks, that's your confirmation. It's going to come all the way into the 240s and it's going to make a bigger bearish move. All right, so watch these levels carefully. The odds do favor downside a bit more based off the 4-hour. It could take some time for it to play out. But like I said before, be cautious of this, be very, very wary of this, and be ready just in case. As for Netflix, I'm just going to talk about a couple of tickers. Netflix is holding up all right so far. There's no true sign of a bearish signal just yet, especially on the 4-hour time frame. Watch support and resistance on this thing. Resistance is going to be around the 447, 445, 447, and 450. Support is going to be at 440. If that fails us, we're going to be watching 435, 430, 425, and beyond. If this thing gets to break to the downside, you're going to be watching how it responds to 430. That's going to be our next support zone to look out for. And then 425. We have an imbalance down here. There's another one down here at the lower levels. Those could get filled if we get to see confirmation. On the triple Q, there's no true sign of weakness. It is very overbought though with the 81 RSI in the 4-hour time frame. The odds favor the triple Q getting somewhat of a reversal from here. There's a bearish divergence developing, but there's no confirmation yet. So if it turns bullish, if it holds this 366 resistance and holds above it, it could pump to the 368 and potentially 370. If it gets a rejection and it comes down below 365, then it's going to come down to 363.8, 362, then potentially 360. Where am I leaning? Right now, I'm in the middle since there's no confirmation of it breaking down, but there's a good chance it's going to try to pump a little bit and then end up just, slowing down as the time goes on. There's a high probability of that, but I'm going to wait for confirmation first before making any claims. But once again, there's a high probability it's going to either pump a little bit more, then start cooling off a bit, or it may cool off from here. For the NASDAQ, once again, there's just no confirmation of this thing breaking down just yet. We're still bullish on the 4-hour time frame. The only thing is we are overbought, so we're just going to see if it rejects off this resistance around this 13,661 area or not. For SPX, if we reject off 4,390, basically the 4,400 area, very close to that. If it rejects off that, it's very close to that 4,400 zone. That could be like the temporary top before it cools off. We also have a potential bearish candle on the 4-hour time frame before it ended, but there's no confirmation just yet. You're right, on the 4-hour time frame, there's just not confirmation. And we have to wait and see how it responds going forward. It is a little bit overbought. Around 76 is where the RSI is, but there's no confirmation. If it manages to hold above 4,400, it could push all the way up to 4,420. If it fails to hold these levels and ends up coming down, watch how it responds to about this 4360 support around the 5 EMA. If that fails on us, it's going to come down to fill this gap potentially all the way down to about this 4339 area, which would bring SPY down to the 4433s basically, or lower than that. And it could break down a little lower and get closer to 430 if that ends up being the case. So watch support and resistance on SPX. The VIX is very close to this like support right here around this 13.5 area, and it just filled this gap down here. If the VIX is due for a bounce because of this, it could be because of the market slowing down a bit, but there's no confirmation just yet, so we're just going to wait and see. The same could be said about the SQQQ and the dollar. To add on to that, Coinbase is still a little bit down in the the after hours, and there's no signal of it cooling off just yet. It got rejected off this 50 EMA. If it wants to pump, you're going to be watching 54.66 as resistance, followed by 57.8 and potentially 60 after that. If it wants to cool off, you're going to be watching support around this 52 area. If that fails us, 50 is going to come to potentially the 40s, the very high 40s. We have 45 as the major support as well. We also have this gap, I believe. Let me just pull up where the gap is on Coinbase. There's a gap down here. Right here. We actually came down to fill this gap not too long ago, but there's another unfilled gap right here. We haven't fully filled this gap officially on the 50 level, so there's a good chance it may get retested, but it's not a guarantee just yet. Now, on the 4-hour time frame, yes, it's trying to hold up, but it is getting stopped by this resistance. So there's a high probability that it may cool off, but we have to watch for confirmation. It needs to break and hold below 52 for it to come all the way down to 50. For now, we're not seeing confirmation of that, so we have to wait and see if it comes tomorrow. There's a good chance it will happen, but we have to be patient just in case. As for Apple, Apple's losing momentum. It's really struggling to break out. It has a bearish divergence developing too. If it wants to turn bullish, it needs to break and hold above 185. It hasn't really done that yet. If it fails to do so, it could come down. If it gets rejected, watch 182.5, then potentially 180.62 after that. I'm in the middle on Apple. There's no confirmation yet, but momentum is slowing down right now. So showing some weakness right now, especially on our MACD. On top of that, Apple is still, trying to push. It's just not showing enough strength just yet. So there's a good chance it might revisit this 182 zone. If that's the case, it could cool down the market a bit. but we need to wait for confirmation. If it breaks below 183, watch this 182.7, then potentially 182.5. And then once again, we have 180 and then, the much lower levels after that. We'll see how we open tomorrow. It's very capricious depending on how the market responds to Jerome Powell. The video is very strong. It's at 433 right now. And it's a little bit overbought, but if it keeps going, watch resistance at 435 and 440. Very, very strong looking chart. There is this imbalance zone on the 1 hour time frame closer to like the I think it was in the 420 area. Let me just double check. It's actually around 418. There's another one around this 408 area. So watch these imbalances carefully. If it does reject off this 435, it could make its way back down to get closer to 420. But for now, we just need to wait for confirmation. There's no true confirmation just yet. We'll see where it rejects by the morning, but just note that we're going to be hitting some resistance around this 435 area. Google is very flat. If it wants to turn bullish, you're going to be watching for that 125 zone as resistance. If it turns bearish, watch support at the 50 EMA at 124, 123.94 also at the 200. And if those all fail us, you're going to be watching major support at 123, followed by 122 flat, and then 120.75 and then 119 as support. We're stuck in the middle for now. Not really doing anything, just chopping back and forth, and I'm not really seeing a signal for a direction just yet. We're just waiting for which direction breaks. Same thing with Amazon. It's doing the whole back and forth thing. We're about to get a bullish cross in the 1 hour, but the 4 hour time frame, which is a lot bigger for the trend, is starting to look a little bit more bearish. So very mixed signals. If Amazon breaks below the 50 EMA, we're going to be watching it make its way down to 124. If it manages to hold above it, it's going to try to push up to 127 again and potentially 128 plus. If it breaks this 128.84 level, watch 130. But for now, it's just in the middle, going back and forth, and we'll see which direction it breaks in. Confirmation of the break to the downside is going to be a break and hold below the 50 EMA. No confirmation just yet. Same thing with Meta. If Meta wants to be bullish, and we're watching resistance at 275, then potentially 276. If it breaks those levels, watch this thing fly to about 280. Now, if it fails to do so, as we had that bearish divergence I called out not too long ago, which caused it to cool off a little bit, that could play out too and cause this thing to come all the way back down to like the 270, 269, 267, 265, and potentially lower levels. But there is a possible cup and handle forming on the 4 hour time frame that could help this thing pump even more. I don't know which way it's going to be, so I'm in the middle with Meta. If it breaks this high right here at this 275 area, this cup and handle could play out, and we could see Meta continue to pump. But if it's a fake out and this is just like a trap, if it fails to break this level, it could come all the way back down and reject. If it rejects, watch 270 and 269 as support, as a very, very important support zone. If that fails, it's going to come all the way down to the 50 and potentially the mid 260s. But anyways, guys, that's what I have for this video. I am sorry I can't give you guys many objective predictions because I have to watch for confirmation. And the market is very capricious because of the Fed. I mean, I can't predict it perfectly for now. We just have to watch and see what happens with these support and resistance levels. The market is showing some signs of exhaustion and being overbought, but we're going to watch confirmation of the supports just to see how it holds. Last but not least, for Tesla, like I said, I'm in the middle for Tesla in a way because I'm always open-minded to which way it goes because the market could make an unexpected move because of Jerome Powell. However, the technicals on Tesla are looking a little bit more bearish on the 1 hour and the 4 hour time frames. And if it does get a clean break below 250, this thing is going to see a lot more downside. My best bet would be to just be as honest as possible and just be very patient and to do what I have to do by managing risks as much as possible. On the bigger time frames, Tesla is still on an uptrend, so there's no true confirmation of it breaking down just yet. That's why you have to be watching support and resistance very carefully. The 1 hour is still looking strong, but RSI is trying to decline just a tiny bit. So just watch it carefully and watch and see if Tesla can hold 250. If it manages to break and hold above 260, there's a good chance it can pump more. If it fails to do so, watch the support and resistance levels I called out and then watch 250 as support. If 250 fails us, we have a lot of levels to be watching for. We have this unfilled gap down here, for example. There's a gap down here in this like 250 area, and then we have another big gap at 235. I'm not guaranteeing it's going to come that low because we have to watch and see how it holds in the 240s. But if it breaks below 240, then that's going to be your confirmation for coming even lower. But for now, like I said, we have some bearish signals on Tesla. We'll see if we get confirmation tomorrow. And with that said, I want to just thank you all so much for listening. Today really was a crazy day, and I'm sure tomorrow will be great too. Thank you. Tesla to the moon as the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.